Welcome to episode 204 of the Sisters in Loss podcast. Endometriosis, or endo, as some of us like to call it, is a condition in which tissue similar to the lining of the uterus grows outside of the uterus, often resulting in chronic pain and other symptoms. It's not very widely understood, so seeing other people who understand it is like finding gold. In today's episode, we are discussing advocacy around endometriosis. Today's guest was diagnosed with endometriosis at the age of 24. Samantha Sanders was diagnosed with endometriosis and has since began her mission to educate young ladies and women around the world. In this episode, we discuss how Black women are less likely to get our endometriosis diagnosed, how doctors are less likely to believe us about our pain, and how endometriosis can overlap with other conditions that Black people are more likely to have. This episode is for you to listen to learn more about endometriosis, all the different stages, and how you can be an advocate for yourself, your health, and others. Here is Samantha Sanders. Welcome, Samantha, to the podcast.
Hey, Erica, how you doing today?
I'm well. I'm excited to have you. I would love for you to introduce yourself and share what you do.
Yes, so my name is Samantha Dene. I'm known as the Endo educator on all social media platforms. I am an endometriosis survivor, advocate, educator. I spend my free time going to high schools in the Atlanta area, teaching students about endometriosis, period health care, how to advocate for themselves when they go to their doctors or with their family members or with their friends when it comes to their period pain. I speak to them about diet. I speak to them about sanitary pads and different brands and organic or chemical to have a healthier and lighter period journey and period flow. I also educate and advocate for women who have endometriosis as well. I am a womb healer. I am a herbal enthusiast, a holistic enthusiast, everything under the sun.
Yes. So let's hop right on in and talk about this big word, endometriosis. Share with us your story. Start with your story through finding out you had endometriosis, getting diagnosed, properly diagnosed, and your journey really through infertility since then.
So my journey with endometriosis has been very, very long. I have always had a debilitating period since my period started at the age of 12. I bled heavily during my cycle, always going through pads like every hour. I would go through a pack of 40 pads in like a week. So I've always had a debilitating and horrible period. And as I got older, my period seemed to get worse and worse. I didn't think that my period was really an issue until I got to be around the age of 22, 23. And that's when my period symptoms started to become a lot noticeably worse. And when I was 24, I almost overdosed on codeine during my period because medications that I was taking prior to were not helping. Like I had tried hydrocodone, I had tried naproxen, ibuprofen, you name it, promethazine. I tried it and nothing was working. So I was prescribed codeine for my period pain and was not shown how to use the codeine properly. And I mistakenly took too many codeine pills, and the next day was feeling very much so out of it, almost fainted. So I had to drive myself back to the physician's office who prescribed me the codeine, but the physician who actually prescribed the narcotics to me was not available. And so I saw a different physician and told him why I was taking the codeine. I explained to him that my period pain is very debilitating every single month. I always have to miss school and I always have to miss work due to my period. I'm basically planning my life around my period. And he asked me 3 questions. He asked me, is my period debilitating? Do I have painful sex? And do I have issues with going to the bathroom? And I answered yes to all 3. And he said, I believe that you have endometriosis. And I had never heard of that word before. He gave me a pamphlet and told me to read up on it, and that if I wanted to find out if I had endometriosis, that I would need to have a laparoscopic procedure, which that is the only way that you can be diagnosed with endometriosis. So I was about 6 weeks from graduating from Valdosta State University with my second degree. And I did not want to have the surgery right then and there because I knew I wanted to walk during graduation and the recovery period was at least 6 weeks. So I waited about a month or so and had surgery in August of 2014 and was diagnosed with stage 1 endometriosis. And from there, it was pure hell, excuse my French. I started on birth control because they use birth control as a way to treat endometriosis to slow down the tissue from growing so fast. And the birth control was not working. I tried different types of birth control pills. I tried Lupron Depot, which is a chemotherapy treatment that they use to treat endometriosis, and they also use it to treat men with prostate cancer. And the Lupron Depot put me in a menopausal state because I was not using hormonal replacement therapy while I was on the Lupron Depot. So I was having hot flashes, night sweats. I had a low sex drive. So it was very hard. It was very hard on emotionally. It took me through a depressive state, trying to find the energy to just do regular things like take showers or get up and go to work or hang out with my friends. It was that the Lupron Depot really depleted my energy. And so after about 4 months of taking Lupron Depot, I decided to stop taking it. And I went back to birth control, and birth control began to make my period last 90 days for 9 months out of the year. And it was that way for about 4 years. My doctors could not figure out why my period was lasting so long. And I tried different types of birth control treatments within that time frame, and none of them were working. They all were making me bleed heavier and heavier. I tried to balance out my progesterone levels because my estrogen levels were already really high. So I tried a progesterone treatment and it did not work as well. And I just opted, after trying all of these different types of medications, to get off of everything, the birth control, and just see if doing things holistically would help. And so around this time, it's 2017, I'm having my second lap surgery, and I am stage 4 endometriosis. And it's been very rough during that time period, from going from stage 1 to stage 4 within 3 years. And so once I decided to get off of the birth control, I kind of had already been told that naturally I cannot conceive children, so I would need to figure out other options, which would either be like IVF and freezing my eggs, or surrogacy, or naturally seeing if my fallopian tubes were unblocked, because that was the reason why I couldn't conceive naturally, was because I have endometriosis tissue in my fallopian tubes. So I was stuck and decided to just quit the medication and try holistically to heal my endometriosis by diet changing. So I cut out dairy, I cut out meat, and went more to just eating vegetables only, juicing, taking more herbal supplements. And I began to yoni steam, which has been helping to make my period a lot lighter, and my period flow easier to maintain. And so since I've been off birth control, which has been about 2.5 years, I now have a normal period, which is 5 days once a month. My cramping is minimum. It's not as bad as when I was having the 90-day periods for 9 months out of the year. I don't have any dizzy or faint spells anymore. My sex drive is no longer low. I feel like normal for a woman my age. I'm 30 now, and I am very, very blessed to have went through such an experience with endometriosis and to end up in a place of where I am now, of being healed of my endometriosis.
Yes. So I would love for you to
to educate us on the how endometriosis really affects the reproductive health system or really your whole body and all those different stages. So how could you go from, stage 1 to stage 4 within such a short period of time? And what was your body doing during that time?
So endometriosis is basically where the lining of the tissue of your uterus will shed during your cycle, but it will also stay within the body. So a woman who does not have endometriosis, when she has her period, her lining will shed in the form of having her period. Well, what typically for women with endometriosis like myself, when I have my period, my lining will shed, but I will also have lining that will stay in the body, which will then turn into tissue and attach to different parts of the organ or different parts of the body. So a lot of people tend to think that endometriosis is just a reproductive issue or it's just a reproductive disease, and really it's a full body disease because endometriosis can start within the reproductive area, but I have endometriosis that grows on my colon. I have endometriosis that grows on my bladder. There are women who have endometriosis that grows on their lungs or around their hearts. So it can basically, it's like a free for all in the body. There are 4 stages of endometriosis. Stage 1 being the most minimal, and they're just a few small implants or lesions that are within the body, and they're usually found within the lining of your pelvis or your abdomen, but there's very little to no scar tissue. Stage 2 is more of a milder endometriosis. There are more implants in stage 1, but they are deeper in the body, and the scarring is much more visible than with stage 1. Stage 3 is more moderate, and there are a lot of implants when it comes to stage 3 endometriosis, but you also could have cysts when you have stage 3 endometriosis, and the cysts are usually found on one or both of your ovaries, and they're adhesions that are found within the body as well with stage 3 endometriosis. Now, stage 4 is the most severe stage of endometriosis because it's the most widespread. So those are women who have endometriosis on their lungs or their hearts, or me, like my colon or my kidneys. Those women with stage 4 endometriosis, they have not only tissue that is being widespread throughout the body, but they also have cysts, which are usually called chocolate cysts, growing within the body on both of your ovaries or maybe one of your ovaries. And women with stage 4 endometriosis, or even a woman with stage 1 endometriosis, it doesn't matter what stage you're in based upon your period. I know a lot of people think if you have stage 1 endometriosis, your period pain isn't as bad as someone with stage 4, but you could be stage 1 endometriosis and your period pain is just completely out of whack, and you can't do anything. Just like myself, I was stage 1 endometriosis, but my period was absolutely debilitating. Like I couldn't eat for the first 5 days of my period or drink water because I'm going to throw it up. But someone with stage 4 endometriosis may not have as a debilitating period as someone with stage 1. Like when I was stage 4 endometriosis, my period, although it was 90 days and it was 90 days for 9 months out of the year, it wasn't as debilitating as my period was when I was stage 1 endometriosis. It was easier to somewhat manage the 90 days than those 7 or 8 days of my period when I was stage 1. So don't base your period pain upon what you think your stage would be, because you're going to find out what stage your endometriosis is. If you have endometriosis, when you have your laparoscopic procedure, your surgeon should tell you what they find when they do your surgery, and they should tell you what stage your endometriosis is. And if they don't tell you, then ask them, what stage am I in? So that way you will know what's going on with your body. You'll have more of an idea, and you can also request for your medical records, and it should be listed within your medical records. So that way you'll have it on paper, what stage endometriosis you're in. So that way you can kind of know what you need to do to help get your body on track.
Yes. And one thing that I found out during my journey post hysterectomy, just because I had such a severe emergent surgery where they were just trying to get out my uterus to stop the blood during my third pregnancy with my son, is that as a result of that hysterectomy, they left over some form of uterus and like my cervical hood that's still left in me. So I still have my cervix, but a part of my cervix, there's still a little bit of uterus. So what was happening post my hysterectomy, I started having a cycle every month. And I'm like, I don't even have a uterus. How am I having a cycle? And come to find out after, going to my doctor, having them do a bunch of different research on, is this something that happens based on the trauma that I have? We ended up scheduling a laparoscopic procedure, and they did do a laparoscopic, and they saw how much scar tissue I had, how much lesions I had. And I actually was having forms of endocrine tissue as a result of my hysterectomy that were forming all over my stomach, all over my bladder. It didn't hardly get to my colon, but it was severe enough that that's what was causing me so much pain once a month, while I was bleeding on a consistent basis. And one thing that I love that you mentioned is just your diet change, how you really had to switch your diet. And ultimately for me, for them to not go back in and do an additional surgery, I had to do the same thing. I had to do a lot of research to say, okay, what are some things that I'm putting in my body that could be affecting why I'm feeling this way every single month? And immediately I turned to food. I did the exact same thing that you did. I eliminated dairy. I eliminated all meat products. I already wasn't eating red meat. I was pretty much on like a white meat type of diet, white meat and fish mainly. So for me to get rid of fish and chicken and turkey wasn't a huge deal. And I did it cold turkey, and I did it for like 3 months. I was like, all right, let me see 3 months, because what the doctors also found during that laparoscopic procedure is that I had cysts as well. I had cysts on my ovaries. So, I had a lot going on during that procedure. And I was just like, Lord, all of this, post-pregnancy, post not having a uterus, and I'm dealing with all of this stuff. Because at the time I was considering, growing my family by going through IVF and possibly having a gestational carrier. And it just kind of threw me for a loop that I had all these other issues going on. But I was just like, I'm here, I want to, go through this process of trying to heal my body from the inside out. So I would love for you to talk about how, the education that you've done, the research you've done, the holistic techniques, you talked about yoni steaming as well, how that has helped really heal your endometriosis, and really how long did it take for your body to respond and you see changes. Really your response would be your period. And for me, my response was not having a period since I didn't have a uterus. So it took about 3 months for me, for my body to say, hey, let's get back on the right track. You're not eating any more dairy. You're not eating any of these nasty red meat type stuff, or just meat in general with hormones. And then my body responded. I didn't have cramping. I didn't have any other issues going on. And my body started to kind of heal itself from the inside out.
Well, dairy was the hardest. I love cheese. So I put cheese on, I feel like, everything. So dairy was the hardest. The meat wasn't as bad. I kind of kept seafood in my diet. I would eat it every now and again, but not every day. So it was really the dairy that was very hard to give up for me. But I will tell everybody who's listening, dairy is not our friend. Like, getting rid of meat is going to be very helpful, but it's the dairy that's really going to be the most beneficial to cut out of your diet, because there's a lot of hormones that they put in dairy products. And if you're like a woman like me who already produces a lot of estrogen, you don't need any added hormones, into your body. And when you cut dairy out, especially the cheese, your body will feel so much lighter. Like, I can't explain how my body felt once I really stopped eating cheese. It just felt like I was floating. Like, it's so heavy on the body. So cutting dairy out was the hardest, but it was the most beneficial thing for me to cut out. A lot of people don't seem to know, but liquor, even though, you know, we like to have, I think it's okay to have a drink every now and again, but I had to cut out liquor because liquor has sugar in it, a lot of sugar, and sugar is one of those things that it will inflame our body when you have endometriosis. So, like, I don't eat sweets, so eating sugar in that regard was okay. The only time I really would crave sweets would be when my period would get ready to come, like most women. But you know, liquor, if I wanted to have wine every now and again, I couldn't drink liquor anymore. Whenever I would drink anything, it would make my period start. And that was so weird to me. Anything, I could take a sip, and my period would start the next day. So I really had to cut out liquor. So if you like, you know, if you like to drink and you have endometriosis, it's not really that great for you. It's not great for your body. I think it's okay in moderation. When I say moderation, I really mean like once every few months, because that's how I have to drink my wine now, once every few months. But there's a lot of sugar in liquor, so it's really not healthy for your reproductive area and those areas that have endometriosis tissue, because it's going to really inflame that. I take a lot of herbal supplements and I yoni steam. So if you all don't know, yoni steaming is basically a holistic practice where you take a blend of herbs and you kind of steep them in hot boiling water, and I personally have a portable toilet, but some people use their personal toilet at home, or they use a pot, or or sometimes they build their own yoni seat. But you basically sit on something that has the herbs and the hot water, and you allow the herbs to detox the womb area. And yoni steaming, I know a lot of people don't tend to believe in yoni steaming or like yoni pearls and things like that. But I will say yoni steaming has really been helpful to my endometriosis and my period. It's really helped to make my period lighter. And I went from using 40 pack of pads, like when my period was 90 days for 9 months out of the year, 40 pack of pad would maybe last me 2 weeks. So I was using pads all of the time because my period was so heavy. So yoni steaming has really like chopped that down a lot. I could wear one pad all day if I wanted to during my period, if I chose to. And that's really a significant change from having to like change my pad like almost every hour or every 2 hours. And I would have to wear 2 pads at a time during that time frame. So imagine, you know, wearing 2 pads at a time and having to change that every 1 to 2 hours. That's a lot of pads. And that's a lot of money too, because pads are not cheap. So yoni steaming has really, really helped with my flow and with me being able to not have to go through so many pads at a time in such a short time frame. I love maca root powder. Maca root is a herb. It's very strong, but I tend to use it for not only increasing my appetite, because it will help you increase your appetite, but it will also help when it comes to moisture of the vagina, because when you have endometriosis, sex is a really big issue, and a lot of women with endometriosis cannot take penetration, and we tend to be dry a lot because of the things that are going on within our bodies. So maca root is a really great supplement to help with that if you have an issue in that area. Dong Quai is also a good, strong Chinese herb that is specifically for women's female reproductive issues. I use nettle, which is good for the kidneys because with my endometriosis, I have tissue that's on my kidneys. So it's hard for me to hold my bladder when I need to go to the bathroom. And so the nettle helps with strengthening my bladder for me. I use red raspberry. Red raspberry is a great herb for reproductive issues. You don't have to just use it for steaming purposes. You can drink red raspberry in a tea. You can also use hibiscus for steaming or for teas as well. Hibiscus tea is very, very good. And rose is also a very good herb to use. You just have to make sure that if you're going to drink it as a tea, you have to make sure that it is the food grade version or the edible version of roses. But rose water is very, very, very healthy for the body. But with all of the diet changes and yoni steaming, I've found that within 2.5 to maybe 3 years, I've seen a major difference with my endometriosis by doing all of these changes. But I believe the biggest change that contributed to me being able to heal my endometriosis is me healing the traumas that I've been through with my endometriosis and with issues that had nothing to do with my endometriosis. Because us as women, we hold our intuition is our wombs, and we tend to hold trauma in our wombs, and that clouds the womb itself. So if the womb is clouded with traumas that we have not healed, I kind of interpret that as the tissue that is growing and damaging my reproductive areas. So I've learned to get to know myself and my womb. I treat my womb like a person. I try not to listen to my ego when it comes to diet changes for my womb area. So like if one day I'm craving something I know I'm not supposed to be eating, I'm really trying to do my best to listen to my womb and know that she doesn't need that, versus my ego who really just wants it because I know it's going to taste good and it's going to fulfill me for, maybe those 20-30 minutes of while I'm enjoying it. But I know later on I'm going to pay for it because my womb does not want that. So I think it's important when you're dealing with a reproductive issue to really understand that to kind of get your place to a manageable point is to be able to heal the traumas that you haven't dealt with yet. And us as women, I know we tend to hold on to a lot of emotional things instead of really releasing it or having conversations about it. And I feel like since I've been able to heal the traumas I've been through, I've been able to heal my endometriosis.
Ooh, that's so good. So good. And thank you so much for sharing the details about the different herbs that you take. I think that is going to be so helpful for a lot of the listeners as they begin to learn more about their cells, their body, and things that they can use to heal their body holistically. But also to note, we got to release that negativity that we carry, that stress that we carry. And, as many different ways that we can do that, definitely by, educating ourselves, but also talking to someone, a counselor, a therapist, to release it out and get it out of us as we heal our bodies inside, but also outside, and then also heal our minds as well. So I'm so happy that you mentioned that. I would love for you to share any tools or resources that you have used to help really deep dive into your own journey through endometriosis that you could share with our listeners. That would be greatly appreciated.
So I tend to find that when you have endometriosis, the biggest thing is having support. Like we have our family and our friends, but if they don't have endometriosis or even just mildly a bad period, quote unquote, I feel like they kind of only sympathize, but they don't really understand what it is that we're going through. So I think the biggest thing is to find a support group and find women who have endometriosis where you can vent to, or, we all have those days with endo where we don't feel like being bothered, or we really just need to not talk to somebody. We just need somebody to listen, but we need somebody to listen who understands. So having a support group when you have endometriosis is I've found has been key, because you can ask them so many questions about what it is you're going through. You never know who you'll find who has been through something similar, and they can offer, tips that they've used to help them navigate through their personal journey. So Endo Black is a resource, and it is a support group started by Lauren Renee, who has endometriosis, and it is specifically for women of color and Black women who have endometriosis, because a lot of people tend to think that endometriosis is strictly a white woman's disease, and more specifically a rich white woman's disease, and that is not the case at all. So Endo Black is specifically for Black women and women of color to be able to ask questions, get advice, especially if you are newly diagnosed with endometriosis, because it is so much to try to process when you hear the words you have endometriosis. So follow them on Instagram. I think it's endo_black. I dove a lot into meditation when it came to healing my endometriosis, and I think if you are not at the point to where you're able to sit with yourself, I think that's going to be the biggest key, because we hold a lot of guilt when it comes to receiving a diagnosis like this. We tend to think like the fertility or the infertility is our fault, or it's our fault that we have endometriosis. The way that we speak to ourselves when it comes to this disease, because we feel like we've kind of lost our womanhood, so to speak, or we feel like we're not really women because we have a disease like this, and then, we can't have children, or we're told we can't have children because God works in mysterious ways. So we feel less than. And I think in order to be able to move through life with endometriosis, the biggest key is going to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that it's not your fault, and really be able to sit with everything that endometriosis comes with and still understand that it's not your fault. Because I had a really hard time with knowing that my diagnosis was not my fault, and knowing that just because I was told I can't conceive or have children doesn't mean that I'm not fully a woman anymore. So that is the biggest advice that I can give to be able to manage and heal your endometriosis, because as bad as the disease is, and as much as it comes with, I think that we have to be able to be kinder and gentler to ourselves, and to know that we are still capable of being loved and receiving love, even though we are going through something like this.
Yes, I love it. So where can we learn more about you, what you do in schools, and connect with you after this episode?
My Instagram is @_Samantha Dene _ that's DENAE. Make sure you guys follow me if you are struggling with your reproductive health issues, or you feel like you don't have somebody to ask questions to. You can send me a DM. I usually respond, and try to answer any questions to the best of my ability. I have a lot of things that I am working on that you can find on my website, which is www.samanthadene.com. I am launching womb detox capsules, which is a blend that I created myself, which has helped to heal my endometriosis, and t-shirts for Endometriosis Awareness Month, which is next month. So please check out my website. You can pre-order capsules or a shirt or both at this time, and they will be shipped out on March the 1st. And I also co-host a podcast with April, Christina, and Lauren Renee. It's called the V. Podcast. We have an episode that usually comes out every other Friday, and we are all women who have endometriosis, and we are telling our stories, how we navigate different topics when it comes to women's health, not just endometriosis, but fertility. April is on a IVF journey right now, and she has been documenting it. So we talk about fertility, we talk about relationships, we talk about racial and health equity when it comes to endometriosis and when it comes to womb health, a plethora of things. So make sure you guys follow me, follow the V. Podcast on Instagram, and make sure you guys check us out.
Thank you so much, Samantha, for sharing your story, sharing your light and everything that you're doing in the Endo community. You all definitely go give her a follow and definitely follow and listen to her podcast, especially for those who are Endo warriors out there. Thank you again so much, Samantha.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. There are so many ways to connect with the Sisters in Loss community. Join our monthly support group, our Sisters in Loss Healing Collective at sistersinlosshealing.com. Join our free Facebook group at sistersinloss.com/community, or text sisters to 797979 to download your free Journal to Healing ebook. That is sisters to 797979 to download your free Journal to Healing ebook. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sisters in Loss, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yeah, girl, we on YouTube at Sisters in Loss TV. We love you for listening. Keep the faith. Until next time, this is Erica, and I'll talk to you soon.